Russia is burning. Ukrainian drones have struck deep inside Putin's empire, setting major oil refineries on fire. The Lukoil plant is in flames, the fourth hit this year. Fuel storages panic at gas stations and chaos in the energy sector. The gas station of the world is running dry. How long before Russia's war machine runs out of fuel? Welcome to Ukraine Today. I'm Zoroslava Kolesnikova. Stay tuned as we show how Ukrainian precision strikes are turning Russia's oil empire into ashes. Ukraine's defense forces have delivered another devastating blow to Russia's energy empire, striking two major facilities, a gas processing plant and an oil refinery deep inside Russian territory. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the strikes caused massive explosions and fire that continued to rage. The first target was the Novokuybishevsk oil refinery in Russia's Samara region, one of the key facilities in the country's fuel production chain.
The defense forces of Ukraine struck the Novokuybishevsk oil refinery in the Samara region of the Russian Federation. A series of explosions occurred, followed by a large fire. According to preliminary data, the plant's primary oil refining units, ELOUAVT, were hit.
The refinery produces over 20 types of oil products with an annual processing capacity of 4.9 million tons. Satellite footage and local reports confirm massive flames and smoke rising over the site. On the same day, Ukrainian forces also hit the Orenburg gas processing plant, one of the largest gas complexes in Russia.
The Orenburg GPP is one of the largest gas processing facilities in the Russian Federation, capable of processing up to 45 billion cubic meters of natural gas and 6.2 million tons of gas condensate or oil annually. According to preliminary information, one of the gas refining and purification units was struck.
Explosions and intense fires were reported across the area, with eyewitnesses describing a bright glow visible for miles.
Охуеть, как там хуярит! Я отсюда аж тепло чувствую. Да?
Сейчас я перезвоню.
Взорвалось что-то.
Взорвалось, ты видел прям огонь? Прям на глазах она вспыхнула.
Спан, она сейчас...
Сядем с отцом, сядем вдвоем на крылечке до утра, до утра. Поговорим о полносе.
Я только сейчас видел, там самолет приземлялся, может самолет разбил. Газовод опять.
According to Russian media, one of the drones hit the Orenburg gas processing plant, triggering a massive blaze. Regional Governor Denis Pastler admitted that a fire had broken out on the site, but claimed it was later contained.
There was an ignition at the enterprise, which has now been localized. No casualties have been reported.
However, eyewitnesses are telling a different story. Locals flooded social media with videos of giant fireball and thick black smoke rising over the facility. People on the ground described loud detonations and powerful shock waves, with the sky glowing red from the blaze. The message from Kiev is clear: the war is coming home to Russia's own industrial heart. Every barrel, every pipeline, every drop of stolen fuel now burns. Lukoil refinery in flames. Russia faces growing fuel crisis. Ukraine's precision strike keeps threatening through Russia's energy empire. This time, a massive explosion hit the Lukoil Nizhny Gorod Neft-Orgsintes oil refinery in the Nizhny Novgorod region, one of Russia's largest and most critical fuel facilities. The overnight strike on October 16, 2025, ignited a huge fire at the plant located 800 kilometers from Ukrainian's border. Analysts of photos circulating online confirm serious damage to the L-24-300 unit. unit responsible for hydroprocessing petroleum products a K-stage. The result, a spreading fuel shortage across Russia. Gas stations in several regions are already facing delivery disruptions along lines, while Moscow scrambles to pour more subsidies into the collapsing fuel sector just to keep prices from exploding. The Kremlin can hide the truth, but not the smoke. Every new strike brings Russia closer to a full-blown fuel collapse. Drone strike ignites massive fire at Russia's Lukoil refinery, fourth attack this year. Russia is burning again. A powerful series of explosions shook the Nizhny Novgorod region overnight as drone struck the giant Lukoil refinery in the city of Kstovo. The attack occurred in the early hours of October 5, 2025, triggering a massive fire that lit up the night sky for miles. Local residents reported multiple blasts followed by waves of hot and heavy smoke rising from the area.
Красная, полоса розовая.
Прям реально что-то горит там.
Russian media and local telegram channels confirmed that the blaze broke out near the refinery's main production facilities, linking it to a suspected Ukrainian drone strike. Located around 800 kilometers from Ukrainian's borders, the plant was believed to be beyond reach. Not anymore. As the fires rage and smoke fill the sky, it's clear Ukrainians' reach keep extending deeper into Russia's heartland, and no refinery, no matter how far, is safe anymore. Russia's fuel crisis explodes, drone strikes hit hard. Putin's empire is running out of fuel, literally. After massive Ukrainian drone attacks, refineries across Russia are burning, production is falling, and gas storages are spreading fast. Lines at gas stations stretch for kilometers. Prices are skyrocketing and panic is growing. Is this how the energy superpower finally collapses? Or will Moscow find a way to keep the engines of war running?
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
An absolute anti-record for Putin. Cars in Russia are ceasing to be a means of transportation and are turning into a luxury item. After all, it's becoming increasingly difficult for Russian residents to fuel their iron steeds. Despite the Kremlin extracting an enormous amount of oil, the country is facing a shortage of gasoline and diesel fuel.
As ridiculous as it sounds, in a country that used to be a gas station and a raw materials appendage of China with a pipeline-based economy, now it can't even provide its own population and businesses with oil and petroleum products.
The main culprit behind the catastrophic fuel shortage beyond the curb has been the Ukrainian armed forces and their precision strikes on the occupiers' oil refining infrastructure. So, by the end of September, oil refineries across Russia were idling at least 38% of their primary oil processing capacity, or 338,000 tons per day. For the former gas station country, this is a colossal market collapse. Recently, the fuel shortage has even been acutely felt at the front lines. At regular Russian gas stations, you can hardly find 95-octane fuel in most regions, even if you search high and low during the day.
In particular, some gas stations have started temporarily limiting the amount of fuel sold to each customer. That is, in some places they only allow up to 20 liters, in others up to 30 liters per purchase. And at other stations in certain regions of Russia, the sale of specific types of fuel was temporarily suspended altogether. For example, in some places there was no 92-octane gasoline available, in others there was no 95-octane, and so on. At the same time, there was a sharp increase in fuel prices at small independent private gas stations that are not part of the so-called vertically integrated oil companies.
This only made the situation in the country worse. Along with the shortage at gas stations came and sky-high prices. This summer, gasoline and diesel prices in Russia have increased by a solid 15 to 20%. And starting from autumn, the prices displayed on gas station signs across the border have been changing almost daily, each time adding another ruble or so to the cost of fuel. But even such an increase is not enough to cover the costs of Russian oil refineries, which are now operating under constant drone attacks in the special military operation zone.
The scale of the shortage is such that this is a desperate attempt by hitting the pockets of oil producers, of oil companies already suffering losses whose profits are collapsing and many of whom have become unprofitable, to somehow supply the domestic market.
Things are even worse for Russian oil traders on foreign markets than they are domestically. Previously, the government compensated for the price difference through exports, but today, Russian oil isn't being bought in Europe even for pennies. This means that cheap gasoline can no longer be expected within Russia itself.
There are major problems with fuel and the crisis will only get worse. Accordingly, oil producers can't make money on foreign markets because of sanctions, a strong ruble and falling oil prices. Right now, Russian oil is trading at $55 to $57 per barrel there, taking into account all the discounts and markdowns in the RMTO. So that's it. Now the oil companies are all but begging the government for help, asking for tax cuts, lower MET rates, export duties and excise taxes. But the authorities can't do that. Their budget is falling apart. They've got a hole in the budget.
And the Russian economy has nothing to patch that hole with. As a result, the Kremlin couldn't come up with anything better than to announce the start of fuel imports into the country, while simultaneously halting all exports of gasoline and diesel from Russia.
So what they're planning is to import gasoline. So Putin has won. He used to say that Russia wouldn't be a gas station, a country that's just a gas station. I think this is a real victory. It really deserves to be noted. Now Russia will be buying gasoline. How can you not recall Churchill, who said that when the Soviet Union starts buying wheat, that's when it will come to an end. So roughly speaking, when Putin's Russia starts buying gasoline, after a while it too will come to an end, just like the Soviet Union once did.
The Ukrainian authorities have also actively set out to help bring about Russia's end. Alongside drone attacks on oil refineries, Kyiv is also hitting Putin's economy hard on the diplomatic front.
If Ukraine synchronizes its strategy to reduce Russia's resource base together with its allies, with Europe, with America, with Japan and so on, then sanctions will be imposed very quickly. And even South Korea and Singapore will simply be afraid to supply gasoline to Russia so as not to fall under sanctions.
In such a hopeless situation, the Kremlin is grasping at the last straw. Disregarding all environmental standards, the government has practically legalized counterfeit fuel in the hope that at least it will saturate the Russian gasoline market. However, analysts assure that such a decision, on the contrary, will drive the final nail into the coffin of oil refining in Russia. And not only that,
the authorities have decided to tackle the gasoline shortage with methods that cause suffocation and damage car engines. Deputy Prime Minister Novak has proposed bringing back for 6 months a special gasoline additive that was banned back in 2016. They want to use it to increase gasoline production, but there's a catch. This additive has a negative impact on the environment, damages vehicles, and increases the amount of nitrogen oxides in exhaust fumes, which settle in the air at a height of 60 centimeters above the ground. It is dangerous for people to inhale these vapors. Symptoms of poisoning include slowed reactions, suffocation, and a bluish tint to the hands and ears.
And such a surrogate with toxic additives will instantly turn the engine into a pile of scrap metal. After just 6 months of driving on this kind of fuel, a car will become unusable, just like all public transport in Russia. Then, without proper gasoline and diesel, the entire multi-million strong country will be forced to switch over to good old horse-drawn carts.
That's all for today on Ukraine Today. If you believe the truth should be burned brighter, the Kremlin lies. Like, comment and subscribe. Want to do more? Become a sponsor and help us keep exposing Russia's collapse, one story at a time. Stay informed, stay strong and stay with Ukraine.